Who wants to eat some delicious meat? All right. My name is Valeti. I'm a cardiologist and CEO of my company, Memphis Meats. So we're growing delicious meat to be better, safer, and healthier for us, the planet, and the animals. We know that the demand for meat is insatiable. So we brought together a team of culinaries, scientists, and health experts to transform the way we look at animal agriculture. Looking back at the history of meat, this started about 12,000 years ago when we first domesticated animals into all the animals we eat now. The wild buffalo, the wild boar, the jungle fowl. And this has led to a tremendous love for meat across the world. In fact, 90% of the population in the world loves to eat meat. 90% of every region, culture, religion loves to eat meat. And this has created a demand for meat that cannot be met by the current agriculture system, and the meat industry knows that. There are three main problems with the way we consume meat at this time. The first one is the big one on the left-hand side, the scarcity of resources. There's not enough land, water, or energy to feed a planet that's hungry for meat, especially because the demand for meat is doubling in the next 30 years. Number two, the incredible health risks associated with the way meat is consumed now, given that there's very few things that are natural in the meat that we eat now. You probably don't know that E. coli or salmonella poisoning are one of the leading causes of death from food poisoning. But not only is that a problem, but the number of antibiotics, 70 to 80% of the antibiotics made in America are used to feed the animals and the meat of which we are eating. And what does that do? It creates antibiotic resistance. And if you looked at consumer reports that just came out in the last few weeks, they tested multiple samples of meat from organic farms, free-range pasture-raised animals, as well as from conventional animal production facilities. And 60 to 75% of chicken breasts, pork, and turkey were contaminated with bacteria that could only come from the feces. For example, E. coli, Salmonella, Yersinia enterocolitica. And these animals also in the meat had multi-drug resistant bacteria. And what does multi-drug resistant bacteria mean? Being resistant to at least 3 antibiotics that are used commonly. And 50% of these meats had MDR bacteria. So this is a serious problem. Not only is that a problem, but in the way we raise billions of animals in confined facilities, it sets up the risk for avian flu, swine flu, or any epidemics that we could be exposed to. And the third and the most important one on the right-hand side is the economic inefficiency of growing meat. How many of you in this room knew that it takes 23 calories of grain to make 1 calorie of beef? No matter how you look at it, a 23 to 1 down conversion of energy and efficiency is just not sustainable as the demand grows. That's why we know behind these challenges is the world's greatest opportunity to pursue. We are starting off by targeting the pork and the beef market, which is about $500 billion just on the Western Hemisphere. And we're going to extend this into other areas. I'm sure you're all curious how this is going to work. It's a very simple and elegant technique where instead of growing a full animal to get meat, we're taking the cells from these animals, whether it comes from a pork shoulder or a top sirloin. And we're growing them with rich, nutritious ingredients and plant-based ingredients and vitamins and minerals so that they can self-renew themselves. And we're putting them in a meat plant where all the inputs that we give to these cells to eat and grow, we know where they come from. We know there is no contaminants in there. We know there's no antibiotics or anything that's harmful in there. And depending on the type of meat we want to harvest, We can either harvest them early on during this cultivation process, or we can harvest them a little bit later to make it tender or much more texturized. And this ends up in a product that we'd like to eat, and we're starting off with the products we all love to eat, the hot dogs, the burgers, the meatballs, and the sausages. So I want to show you first at a microscopic level what's growing in our farm. And look at this carefully. These are large muscle fibers from beef that are, you're looking under a microscope. And this could be from maybe the steak you ate today. If we took it from an animal and put it under a microscope, it looks exactly the same. And you can see it contracting. And we're calling this paradigm change the second domestication, because remember the first domestication happened 12,000 years ago when all the animals were domesticated into livestock. Now we are domesticating cells to grow our meat, because what if we just grow the meat that we eat and not the skin, the hair, and the bones that we're not eating? Makes it a lot more efficient, also better, safer. The process we are road mapping converts about 3 calories into 1 calorie of meat. Hugely efficient than what's out there now. Even if we are off by 2-fold, 3-fold, 5-fold, or 7-fold, we're still going to be much more efficient. I also want to show you that in parallel to our cultivation techniques we are developing at Memphis Meats, we're very, very cognizant of the need for safety. So every time we harvest some meat, we take it and we test it. And you can see on your left-hand side a bacterial culture dish for pork. We asked our intern to go and get meat from a free-range pasture-raised animal and also from a conventional supermarket. And on the very left, you see the M, that's where the meat from our farm was seeded on this bacterial plate. And we waited 24 hours to see what grows out of it. And we did the same thing with beef. So we did pork and beef, and you can see on the left-hand side, there's really no growth, but on the right-hand side, whether it's organic or conventional meat, there's a lot of fuzzy bacterial growth happening. In fact, it's a little more dense in the organic one because those animals are not exposed to antibiotics. So this tells you that it's important to start cultivating safety right from the first moment a cell starts multiplying and becoming meat. Now I want to show you this video. I'm hoping we're looking for some audio here, please. Well, the audio doesn't play, but we flew in a chef from LA. We gave him our meat and asked him to roll it, and you can hear it sizzle, and he put it on a plate, cooked it with pasta, and plated it for one of the tasters to try it. And this is Stephanie trying it, and she should be saying, tastes good. Tastes like meat. Can I have more? In fact, we had to stop her from eating the whole meatball because there were others who wanted to taste it. I'm sorry the sound didn't play, but we also are very cost conscious. The first burger cost about $350,000 for 100 grams about 3 years ago. We've already dropped it 100-fold and continuing to drop the price very rapidly because we see this as something that should be affordable to all. And we have a roadmap of how we want to come to the market. In parallel, we also know there's a massive transformation happening in the animal agriculture business. If you've been watching the news, every major food manufacturer, multinational, has been announcing animal welfare-friendly policies. McDonald's, Target, Starbucks, Walmart, Cargill, Chipotle. There are like 200+ companies, all in the last 12 to 18 months, that have adopted these animal welfare policies. And they're looking for innovation because what animal welfare policies mean is you're going to make this whole process a lot more inefficient because you're giving them more space, getting them out, and the cost of meat production is going to go up incrementally. There's also a lot of startups you've heard about. People talked earlier today and yesterday about startups trying to mimic meat, plant-based meats. You've got Impossible Foods, Beyond Meat, Hampton Creek, Gardein, Boca Burgers, and there's clearly an area that people are interested. Now we're looking at real meat that people are used to eating and supplying it in the way that they grew up eating it. So we feel like this is a big area of innovation. There'll be many more companies to come in the next 5 to 10 years. And we have a roadmap for all these companies, and including us. We are already at less than $40 a gram. And the next steps for us is to really identify the cells that grow well and bring the cost of the food we feed these cells to make it really affordable, followed by building our meat plants to scale up production, followed by testing with meat chefs that know how to test meat and give us feedback before we put it on the shelves of retail. We also are incredibly happy to see, since our breaking news in the Wall Street Journal earlier this year, the number of media, journalists, as well as the social platforms talking about when Memphis meat's products would be available globally. And one of the polls conducted by Sam Harris had 15,000 people who said if an alternative to what they're eating now exists and it tastes identical to meat, 80% plus would switch, absolutely switch to this meat. And we know that since then there's been multiple other articles that have come out that have been talking about what if we can have the best cuts of beef every single time, or pork or chicken, that is guaranteed to be better, safe, and healthier. It's also been named the hottest tech in Silicon Valley in Fortune on the stands this month. And we've continued to get requests from people globally to partner with them and help grow this new area of animal agriculture. We have an incredible team with brilliant minds and brave hearts who are laser focused to make this a reality in our lifetimes. As a cardiologist, I want to make sure this is healthy for us, for our hearts. My co-founder, Nick, is a meat farmer. He actually grew livestock, got a PhD, understands how to grow muscle. Our other co-founder, Will, owns 50-plus barbecue restaurants in his family in Memphis. And we continue to add to our team, and this is not the full team, but we have a very deep experience in culinary, science, as well as meat plant production. And we're hoping to share this story continuously in the next few years with people at Pioneers. And we would love to partner with anyone that wants to work with us, work for us, or help us make this a reality. Thank you so much.